Hello, thank you for joining me here at Bert's Books, where this time, rather than look at a particular title, we're going to be looking at a pretty random sort of selection. Now, when I first started doing this, I didn't exactly do my research, and I didn't really realise that booktubing was a thing and that many of you are out there. I subsequently discovered as I went along and got a chance to see what some of you are doing. One thing strikes me. You all have these lovely, pristine shelves, these ordered, neat, tidy, clean shelves. Here's one of mine. So with this in mind, I thought I might do a rather random rundown of some, not all. I don't have time for all. As you can see from the picture, there are many volumes perched on my cistern, but I thought I'd do a little rundown of some of the titles that happen to have found a home there for those quiet moments of contemplation. Toilet Cistern Title 1, Robert R. McCammon's Baal, not to be confused with the Bertolt Brecht title. This is a 1979 edition, Sphere Books, and you can see that, that distinctive style of horror jacket that kind of was in the process of displacing those more gaudier sort of airbrushed or painted treatments. This sort of more duotone or three-tone sort of treatment of this. It starts off with one of those devil child sort of stories. A woman is ravished, and to her a child is born, unleashing an unimaginable evil upon this world. Now they call him Baal in the orphanage, where he leads the children on a rampage of violence. Baal in California, where he appears as the head of a murderous Manson-like cult. This isn't the only book I've got where there's a pseudo Manson. There's another. We'll get to that another time. In the deserts of Baal. In the deserts of Arabia, where crazed millions heed his call to orgy and assassination, and then it goes to the Arctic, apparently. So, yeah, devil child to adulthood. McCammon is one of those names. He's kind of one of those ubiquitous horror authors at the time. I haven't finished this yet. I think I found this in a second. This was from a second-hand shop, either in Bath or Bristol, on one of my travels. But anyway, next up, by the author of Night of the Crabs, Locusts, by the late Guy N. Smith, another huge name in 70s and 80s pulp horror, who passed away late last year, I believe. I'm taking a punt that this follows his, the same formula that Crabs does. But anyway, it seems the start of a glorious summer. See, it's like Crabs. As Alan Alton and his family settle into their new home in the Shropshire Hills. I think that's where Guy lived. Then the insects start to appear. First there's one, then hundreds, thousands, millions. A smothering tide of destruction covers the land. Locusts. As the heat wave continues mercilessly week after week. Sounds very 1976, doesn't it? The horde of invaders grows. A hideous red-eyed devastation spreading across town and country, biting, stripping, devouring and hating. Insects on the spectrum of emotions. Hateful animals. For this onslaught, the human population turns to flight. I feel like I've read this before in another form somehow. As panic grows, the death toll also rises and the whole country is plunged into chaos. Britain is being eaten alive. Can nothing stop the locusts? I'm going to take a guess that Alan Alton stops the bloody locusts. Next up, a cheapy biography, which I think is another of those titles I found in Barmouth. There's this weird thing with little seaside towns and their second-hand shops. So always come up with something interesting. This by Marsha Daly, a fairly kind of brief treatment on Spear Books 1975. I did get through this, or most of it anyway. A slightly unlikely sex symbol. I think he was kind of pushing 50 at this point. The lollipops were, I mean, as well as the shaved head, the lollipops were another gimmick. I think the idea was that the character of Kojak, when you're introduced to him in the first series, that he's trying to give up smoking, so the lollipop is a kind of substitute, you know, to make him feel he's getting a fix of something while he's jonesing for tobacco. But then it kind of becomes his trademark, if you like. From what I remember of this book, it repeatedly emphasises his kind of innate, I suppose, hustler mentality in his approach to success. I think was kind of fermented in his childhood during, I suppose, times were quite hard at that point in, I think, New York he's from, and so he kind of evolves to be a very very instinctive hustler sort of personality. Also a kind of King Kong sized ego, and it does actually, I think, go into the details of Telly Savalas's musical career. If you're of a certain age, you will remember his pretty much a spoken word hit from about that time, actually, 1976-ish. If a picture paints 1,000 words, why can't I paint you? It was quite I think it was even #1 here. It was a big hit. Again, sort of, you know, hustler personality, you know, chance to make a record, and actors were kind of expected to, in a way. Actors were expected to make records at that time. There were albums by Edward Woodward. I think I've seen an album by David McCallum and Telly Savalas. Smooth kind of crooner, so he doesn't really sing. Up next, every toilet cistern needs horror titles. Mark Ronson, not to be confused with the Mark Ronson who produced Amy Winehouse's albums. Plague Pit. I believe that's red foil stamping. From the depths of the earth rose a hideous stench of death. Again, I haven't really got through this one. I have another of his titles, which I first read when I was 15, called Ghoul, which, you know, isn't bad. We'll probably get to that one in more detail at some point. It's also foil stamped, I think green foil stamped. Anyway, this one. Deep foundations are being dug on a city building site when some old brickwork is revealed. Ooh. Part of it collapses, releasing a gust of air so foul. It's no coincidence this lives on my system. Releasing a gust of air so foul that all the men nearby begin to choke and retch. Plague Pit. Finally, the nauseous stench disperses and they discover a burial crypt dating back to the Great Plague of London, 1665. But these pits should never be disturbed. When the intruders begin to show horrifying symptoms, all will die hideously within 5 days. Oh, that's cheery. The frightened authorities struggle to stop a national crisis. So the victims are isolated and a cover-up is launched. But one of the men who entered the pit cannot be traced. Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, but now the ultimate intrusion of evil. The Sentinel by Jeffrey Konvitz. I've never read this either. I've never seen the film. The film is, here we go, a Michael Winner film. Something about this cover blurb tells me that this is probably going to be a bit derivative. Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist have prepared the way for the Sentinel. Alright, so this obviously is going to top both of those, right? A notably nasty essay into the possession by evil forces, the power of Satan, the legion of the damned. Mr. Konvitz writes with efficient and practiced ease. The Observer, a Michael Winner film, The Sentinel. with Chris Sarandon and Christina Rains, John Carradine, Ava Gardner, Eli Wallach. Next up, R11, This Perfect Day. I've no idea, I only picked it up because I'm a Saints fan. You know the Saints song, This Perfect Day? Where monthly treatments keep people docile and where everyone is scheduled to die at the age of 62 for efficiency. Well, that's a bit more generous than Logan's Run, which gives you till 30. How LIRM35M4419, the hero of this book, comes into conflict with the forces that... Again, they mention Rosemary's Baby on the cover. Maybe a cut straight to Rosemary's Baby. Anyway, if you're out there, Chris Bailey, this is for you. Next up, another green foil stamping job. The Crone by Bill Garnett. Bill Garnett. Magda Janosi was dead, but her death was just the beginning. I don't know what category this falls. Old lady horror, maybe. In an ancient Transylvanian ritual of blood, fire and steel, she died to create a creature of vengeance. First, the creature was a mindless lump of semi-fluid flesh resting under the floorboards of the dingy London rooming house. That sounds a bit like Hellraiser. Impelled by its overwhelming need to eat, to grow. It does sound like Hellraiser. It fed on beetles, silverfish and then rats. It really sounds like Hellraiser. 1984, it might even be before Hellraiser. Anyway, each time changing, taking the form of its victims. Then it heard the baby's sickly wail. Okay, well that looks promising. Last, at least of this batch. This wouldn't be complete without some pulp war title. Here we go. Heinz Konsalik, Frontline Theatre. Fairly standard cover art treatment. One of those sort of airbrushed or painted kind of views of the Wehrmacht not having the best time of it. And strangely emerald green colour to the uniforms that you only ever see on 1970s and 1980s book jackets. The cover promises more than this is. Konsalik, I've read a couple of his and they're just weirdly a bit insubstantial. You kind of get the feeling he'd much rather just be writing romances rather than war titles. I mean, even by the low standards of a 70s or 80s war pulp, these Konsalik titles are just a little bit so what. So anyway, the blurb of this: the German front line sports 2 theatres. Oh dear, I already see where this is going. The makeshift theatre where troops are entertained. That sort of theatre. Is this the German It Ain't Half Hot, Mum? It's about a theatre troupe where the troops are entertained, trying to forget, amid the tarnished glitter and the bitter-edged humour, the grim and inescapable reality of the war outside, and the makeshift theatre where doctors try, in hopeless, overcrowded conditions, to stitch together the flesh torn by the machines of war. Both performances lack conviction. The men know the futility of their struggle, for they know how the war will end. Lists about 7 other titles by Konsalik, including one called Highway to Hell. I tried with this one, and like I say, it's kind of got this romance novel, like a romance pulp feel to it, which didn't quite work for me. So anyway, that's this batch. We may return to this theme. Maybe I'll make a little hashtag of this, just in case anyone else out there has an unsavoury pile of paperbacks on their toilet cistern and is willing to share. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.